family. Hello, family. We're going live impromptu, so come in, please. It's good to see everybody. This is Wednesday, February the 4th, 2026, and the time is somewhere around 3 o'clock, around 3:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm sure you all didn't know I was going live, so we'll just wait for some people to check in. Come on in. Hi, family. Before we get started, I want to tell everybody thank you for watching my show on yesterday. We talked about how we're experiencing banking collapse and actually a collapse of the old financial system. So if you want to look at that video, please go look at how we talked about how the old financial system is almost completely done as we transition into a new gold system. So hello, family. Also, thank you so much for all of you that listen to my podcast and you blessed me with donations and you supported me and sent me a lot of love and encouraging words, as somebody in the comment section was not being too kind. They were being very rude. And so you all rallied around me and you supported me and you said you were here for any news that I had to bring forth and that I should ignore any negativity. So thank you. That meant a whole lot to me. And thank you to Chief Mac, who got online and said that the men would rally around the women who have been bullied during this time period, because a lot of women have been speaking out against, oppression, and mainly against oppression in the system, oppression in the financial system. And some podcasters who are women have felt a little leery about speaking out. But Chief Mac and also Michi Slay and Mr. Brotherhood was in the comment section. And a lot of our men, the Adept Moore, were saying they're not going to allow for women to feel uncomfortable speaking out and speaking their truth about what's going on geopolitically, or even relationally, or what's going on in the financial system. And so Chief Mac asked people to please support me and send love. And they did. You all did. So I want to say thank you. And thank you for the hearts as well. And on yesterday, I also shared how I was being stalked. And, there was like certain people guys that were like following me. Someone showed up at my door unannounced at night, and I told Chief Mac about it. I told my sons, of course, and we dealt with that. Also, I keep running into one particular guy who eventually told me that he knew where I used to live. And this guy says that he's a follower of my show. And one of the gentlemen who overheard him say that told me that the men in our community heard that guy say that, because this was like out and open. He was like, yeah, I know where you live, because we met at a shop to do some business. And he was like, I know where you live, and you used to live at such and such place. And so the guy with whom I was doing business said, listen, I heard you, and so did some of the other gentlemen around you. Heard that you're being stalked and watched, and there's no reason for someone to say that they know where you live and where you used to live. So you need to have protection, and you need to be on guard, and you need to know that the men are protecting you. So I'm so grateful to the men and the male energy and masculine energy that's around me, with my sons, with my business partners, with Chief Mac, with Chief Rod Hayes, who's protecting me spiritually, providing a cover, and Chief Mac and all the other men that are around, just making sure they send positive energy. I have a lot of positive energy from the Moors, the male Moors, positive energy from Asir and his wife, the lovely Selena Cordoba Ali, and the Moors in America from Columbus, he and his wife. I'm just so grateful to have all this protection, military protection as well. It can be really stressful to do God's work, know you're doing what's right, and have people in the comment section do what they did yesterday, calling me bitchs, saying that, that, I don't know, just saying some rude things. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the Soul family came out yesterday and said that you all will not tolerate that. So thank you so much. Peace and blessings to all of you. I love you so much. So, and I'm grateful to you. So let's get right into the news, family. I titled this video, "This is the End of a Banking Age," the banking age. There has been a sell-off of stocks, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and at the same time, banking collapses. So let's just talk about it. On yesterday, I talked about how Bitcoin, silver, and gold all on the same day took a dive on Friday. And at the same time, the Chicago Bank and Trust collapsed. So you had a bank collapse, Bitcoin, silver, and gold all take dives and collapse in one day on last Friday. This caused everybody to pause and say something is happening. At the same time, there was a Chinese gold-backed platform that collapsed. And what happened was, in China, a major gold trading platform that collapsed sparked a $1 billion scandal, which caused people to sell off a bunch of their gold, leaving customers billions of Chinese yuan out of pocket. All this happened on last Friday. That was the same day that First Lady Melania Trump came out with her documentary, Melania. When you do the gematria or the numerology on Melania, it comes out to 55. Q post 55 says that this is a storm. The storm is upon us. All that on January the 30th, and that led to a shutdown, a partial government shutdown, they're saying, on January the 31st. So much has been happening. So you fast forward to, by February the 1st, we saw silver and gold continue to take a dive, whereas silver and gold had reached record numbers over the last month, like hit new all-time highs, where gold was as high as $5,500 per ounce, and silver had breached $119 per ounce, something that's unheard of. Thank you, Sister Janine. Our moderator is in the chat. She's saying, hit them up, family. And if I look a little sick, it's because I don't know what happened. Like in 24 hours, like between yesterday and last night, I got extremely ill. It's like, I don't know, was a virus just for 24 hours? I don't know if you all have been experiencing, but many people around me, my family members, and I just heard that there was just some type of flu going around that was like taking people down between 24 hours and 72 hours. And my banker was out for a whole month. So I'm rebounding now from whatever that was, but I've been taking my black seed oil and oregano to try to combat that. And I feel so much better on today. So now let's talk about what's happening in the markets. So we talked about Bitcoin, gold, and silver all taking a dive all in one day on Friday. Now, the Chinese gold-backed platform also went bust on that day. So let's start off with Bitcoin. We're talking about Bitcoin, gold, silver, and the banking system. I looked up what's happening in Bitcoin. And what I found was, as early as February 2026, excuse me, whoo, excuse me, as early as February 2026, we experienced a massive cryptocurrency. Ooh. I'm sorry, family. So we experienced a downturn, which wiped and $68 billion to $800 billion in market value since its October 2025 peak, with Bitcoin leading the sell-off in the cryptocurrency market. Bitcoin dropped below 77,000, which erased approximately $800 billion in market value, which was driven by forced liquidation. I'm reading my notes. So I'll say that again. As early as February 2026, we experienced, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call. We experienced a massive cryptocurrency market turn down or downturn, wiping out between 468 billion to 800 billion in market value. It's October 2025 peak, with Bitcoin leading the coin. They give all type of reasons, but I'm wondering if it's that the old system, which was comprised of many elite people, were using Bitcoin actually to buy Ildren trade. to buy our children and to sell off children. Thank you so much for the gifts. And so now that we are having massive arrests, it's possible that people are trying to get out of the Bitcoin market and dumping as much as they can. But this will lead to a transition into the new system. So many people started looking to the United States Treasury saying, what are you going to do? Bitcoin is collapsing. Are you going to bail them out? But the United States Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said Bitcoin cannot be bailed out and will not be bailed out. In fact, he said that the United States Treasury Department has no authority to use taxpayer funds to bail out Bitcoin. They said they simply will not bail out Bitcoin. Now, this lets me know that the Republic has been restored, because the United States Treasury actually operates under the Republic and for the Republic, but they will not bail out Bitcoin. So let's talk about what's happening with other cryptocurrencies. 140 billion has been wiped out from the crypto market today, February the 4th. 140 billion wiped out from the cryptocurrency market in one day says a lot about how the old system is collapsing. That's the cryptocurrency market. What's happening in the stock market just today? United States stocks are dumping. The SPX is down 0.95%, erasing $580 billion in market value. The NASDAQ is down 2.4%, wiping out $1 trillion today. The Russell 2000 is down by 2%, losing around $64 billion today. In summary, risk is being sold across the United States markets all at the same time. So that's what's happening in the stock market. The stock market is taking a dive. Now let's talk about the banking system and how the banking system is collapsing. It's clear that this is the end of the banking age. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, but more than 6,000 commercial banks or bank branches have closed within the last 5 years. Since 2018, an average of 1,646 bank branches have closed annually. Last year, JP Morgan Chase alone closed 43 bank branches with a total of 66 shutdowns recorded. They like that number 6. This year, the predictions in 2026 suggest a high risk of significant U.S. bank failures, with some experts estimating that as many as 2,000 bank branches are at risk for closures between 2026 and 2027. In Florida alone, where I live, 24 banks will close. In fact, they're closing right now. In Bank of America, we expect at least 11 bank branches closing. With PNC, at least one bank is reporting to close. Within Fifth Third Bank, one bank we know is definitely going to close. And TD Bank saying that we're going to have at least 2 branches to close. So in Florida, 24 bank branches will close between Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PNC, Fifth Third Bank, and TD Bank. So what's happening is that this is the end of the banking era. We will no longer have banks, as banks are a part of the old system. Remember, we were operating, let me open this card. We were operating in a maritime law, or on maritime law and admiralty law, which is based on the law of the water. And according to the so-called elite, we were considered lost at sea and dead. So all of their systems that are tied to admiralty law, maritime law, the law of the water, which includes the court systems, the police, which are policy enforcers of the United States Incorporated, all that is collapsing. All of it must end. This is why we will see, and we have seen, judges being arrested, attorneys being arrested, because they all participated in enforcing their policies of the United States Incorporated and arresting us hauling us off in their court system, performing seances and rituals and funeral services because they considered us dead. And the attorneys were attorneying for us or speaking on our behalf because they felt like we were minors. We were minors who couldn't speak for ourselves. That's why you would whisper to your attorney and your attorney would speak for you. And the judge would perform their seance or their ritual or their funeral in a black robe because they all considered us dead at sea. All of that has to end. So the banking system will collapse, the court system will collapse, which, by the way, has to happen because in order to be an attorney and or a judge or administrator, because they're not judges, they don't actually administer any law. All of them have to pass the bar in order to operate under the old system. The bar is the British Accredited Registry. That means that they took an oath and a pledge to uphold the best interests of Britain and the Queen, or the crown, the British crown. So they weren't working for we the people, they were working for the British crown. That's why they have a title of nobility, Esquire, behind their names. And interestingly enough, the Congress people, con men and women, and con men, con women, most of them, if not all of them, have Esquire behind their name because they all happen to, or most of them happen to be attorneys. So this is how they move up. They go through the 4 years of college, and I know because I was a college administrator. They go through 4 years of college, then they go on to law school for about 3 more years. They pass all their exams, and then they have to study for the bar, the British Accredited Registry exam. Many of them pledge along the way in secret societies at the fraternal sorority order, whether it's the black secret societies or the so-called white secret societies, while they're in undergrad school, but definitely by the time they get to law school. Then they pass the British Accredited Registry, the bar exam, and they get Esquire behind their name, which is a title of nobility. Well, according to our Constitution for our republic, you may not have a title of nobility and create laws. Why? Because people with the title of nobility work for and does what's in the best interest of the British crown and not we the people. So just by virtue of having Esquire behind your name, knowingly or unknowingly, you work for the British crown. You work also for the United States Incorporated, or the fake faux government, which usurped authority from our lawful republic. So this is why you're going to see a lot of attorneys arrested, a lot of administrators arrested. Many of them have worked in cahoots with United States Incorporated to enslave us, to keep us perpetually bound by their statutes, codes, and policies. They're not laws, they're legalities, statute, codes, and policies. And if we didn't get along with them or decided not to agree with them, then they would lock us up. After seeking their policy enforcers, police officers on us, lock us up and perform rituals in their courtrooms, and at the same time gain access to our trust. So now that they locked you up, they would take money from their trust to pay themselves off and to say that they're paying for you to eat, sleep, etc. in their courts or in their jails, but they were literally stealing from our trust and taking that money for themselves. But as Chief Rod Hayes said on my show Sunday night, what was done to enslave us and what was meant to harm us will be turned into something that will be for our good. So even though a trust was created for all of us with our birth certificate bond attached to it, because each of us that were born in hospitals had a birth certificate, and then our mom signed them, and they would stamp our feet with ink and then press it on the birth certificate. Those birth certificates were traded through the New York Stock Exchange, and it gained interest. And that trust, that birth certificate, as well as your Social Security, were all put in a trust. Whenever we went to court, they stole from the trust. Whenever you went to jail or prison, they stole or took that money from your trust to pay themselves. Whenever we got a mortgage or a bank loan, they took the money out from our trust and paid themselves and then made us pay them again with interest. All that has been determined as unlawful. Whenever you pay rent, the money comes out of your trust. Whenever you go to the hospital and everything we do, you buy a car, you get a car loan, everything you do, you think you're signing a promissory note just to pay them, but in small letters under that line you sign would give them permission and power of attorney to your trust or to my trust, and they would pay themselves. But they weren't supposed to do that. Our trust that was created through with our birth certificate bond was supposed to offset any so-called debts. It was supposed to pay our rent. It was supposed to pay our mortgage, or our house, not mortgage, because a mortgage is a death pledge. It was supposed to pay for utilities. It was supposed to pay for living expenses. They paid out themselves. Now, speaking of the Social Security, it used to be a time when you can look up GMEILutility.org and you can see all the companies in America and all across the globe that were trading under your Social Security number. I had tens of thousands of companies, many based in China, many based in Ukraine, some in Europe, some all across America that were trading using my Social Security number. But that website has been taken down since COVID. We started tracking that in 2017, and we just would track every year how many companies were trading using our Social Security number. That website has been taken down, which hopefully that means they're no longer trading under our Social Security number. I'm talking like all types of Chinese banking firms, billionaires, companies all across the globe, but many were China and Ukraine based, as well as American based. So those same accounts that were tied to your Social Security number, as well as your birth certificate bond that had a trust created with it, that was accruing interest, now will be turned back over to you. That's what Chief Rod Hayes taught us on Sunday night. We are all going to get a letter at some point that will tell us who our ancestors are, because they've been tracking us since birth, and all the estate and assets that were attached to our family and our ancestry, and that will be returned back over to us. So we are moving from a system of enslavement where we were victims of theft, victims of slavery, being hauled into court, having handcuffs on us, living on our own land in our own countries, being told we had to show driver's license and apply for licenses to fish in our own ponds, to travel on our own lands, to buy homes in our own countries. And so what these elite people have done was create systems, or elites, or Elohim as I call them, of enslavement to keep us bound on our own lands, while they will let other people come in and freely live off of our land, freely live off the fat of the land, the resources of the land, while they will enslave us and price us out of our own homes. It doesn't matter where you live in the world, they will price you out of your home. Because major corporations will go up buying up houses, buying up complexes from people that they forced to sell, because the people, they would raise the property taxes up so high that people that bought up homes and bought real estate and bought lands or owned land couldn't afford to pay the taxes. So the banks and major corporations would form a monopoly, have a monopoly on the lands, on the mines, on the homes, on the real estate, on the commercial property, and they would corner the market and raise the prices so high that the people that lived in those neighborhoods and community, I'm running out of battery juice, could not afford it. So then their rich buddies can come into your neighborhoods in your countries, on your lands, whether you live in Central South America, Europe, or North America, or the Caribbean. Foreigners, their buddies and major corporations and billionaires would buy up all those lands and let their buddies live in it. That would push you off the street, out of your homes into the street. And then they would make it unlawful or illegal to be homeless. And while you're living in tents trying to survive, they will come take your stuff. Then they would create I lost my keys. They create these rent places like Rently, Rent Grow, where all of these commercial properties or companies, billionaires and BlackRock, State Street, and other billion companies and commercial properties and own all your homes. If you wanted to qualify for a home, it didn't matter if you had the money or not. They will all use Rently, Rent Grow, and the same rental verification place. So that what was happening was you qualify for a you think you qualify, but they're all using this one platform to determine whether or not you are verified or you qualify for a place. And you're like, my credit score is decent, which that's a whole fraud. Why do you have to prove that you have this score makes you able to buy or rent within your own community or on your own lands? But you can make enough, you could think you qualify, but if one company or one person disqualified you, everybody will use that one company to determine if you're verifiable or if you are credit worthy or credible enough to rent. It's all asinine. It's all insanity. What has been allowed to happen on our lands, no matter where you're from. Even in Europe, with the influx of Africans coming into Europe, many Europeans are being priced out of their own homes, in their own communities. That's an issue. In the Caribbean, they're being priced out by East Indians. In North America, where we live, here where I live, we're being priced out by companies. BlackRock, State Street, and we were being priced out by Chinese companies. Mainly, there was one big Chinese company, and the name has escaped me, that filed for Evergrande filed for bankruptcy in 2022, 2023, I think it was one of those years. And they were 2022, and they were forced to liquidate in 2023. Evergrande, the largest Chinese real estate company, owned land, farmland, land around military bases, homes, commercial property, all over North America. You had the Communist Chinese Party owning real estate in your own country, owning farmland. How is it that the Chinese Communist Party, which was an enemy to China, so you know they're an enemy to us, the same people who sell us clothes, sell us food, the same people we found out, not the Chinese people, but the Chinese Communist Party, we found out were selling us plastic instead of rice. We thought it was rice, it was plastic. We were eating literal plastic. They sold us clothes that had chemicals in it that was killing us. Now they're owning farmland. What are they doing if they own farmland? Now they own real estate, and they were allowing many Chinese communist spies on our land. And you know that happened because on February the 8th, 2020, the Secretary of State at that time was Mike Pompeo. He went to the governor's conference, February 8th, 2020, and he met with all the governors, and he said, I know what you've done. You've all been complicit with the Chinese Communist Party. I want you to look it up. You can look up, there's a YouTube video. Mike Pompeo speaks to the governors at the governor's conference. I had the blessing and the privilege to actually hear it when it happened and report on it. He said, you've all been complicit. I have a report card of how many of you have been complicit with the Chinese Communist Party of China. And it rates you from A to F how well you've been complicit. Many of you have allowed the Chinese military to come in on our lands. Many of you have allowed the Chinese spies to come in. He said, I don't have a problem with China. I don't have a problem with just basic Chinese people coming here to get an education, but you've allowed them to infiltrate your states, he said to the governors. And I'm going to warn you and caution you to do the right thing. Because as a former FBI director, I know what you've done. You've allowed the CCP to infiltrate banking. You've allowed the Chinese Communist Party, also known as the CCP, to infiltrate politics. You've allowed them to infiltrate our research institutions. You've allowed them to infiltrate our universities. You've allowed them to come into our school system. You've allowed them to infiltrate the media. You have allowed, governors, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, to infiltrate every segment of our society that governs people's lives. Entertainment, real estate, politics, government, media, all of them. The medical industry, research, all of them. And you're selling out secrets from our military and from our research institutions back to China. I'm going to ask you to do the right thing, because if you don't do the right thing, then the Trump administration will do whatever we have to do to deal with you. That was February 8th, 2020. When I saw that, I said, he's trying to prevent them from shutting down the world, because we had some announcements about COVID starting from November 2019 all the way up through February 2020. So that governor's conference was pivotal in our history. Well, the governors didn't listen. They allowed for their states to be shut down. They allowed for the Chinese Communist Party military to be brought in. And that's why Trump released the National Guard after that governor's conference. People were mad. Oh my God, he's trying to take over the country. He's releasing the military to take over his own people. No, he was protecting the people from the CCP, the Uhays that were working together, the elites, so-called elites, or Elohim, the deep state, cabal, the United States Incorporated, all of them. He was protecting us from them, but they went ahead with the shutdown. Then they paid George Soros funded BLM, ANTIFA, and all of those protest organizations. But what they seeded in the consciousness of people, the everyday American people, is that Trump is releasing the National Guard for no reason at all. You ought to be upset. And they said Trump caused the shutdown, but Trump wasn't the one that released the sickness. We now know that there were labs in Inache in Ukraine that were creating sicknesses and releasing them into the Americas and all across the globe. Trump was trying to get ahead of that. That's why he sent out the National Guard. That's why Mike Pompeo met with the governors at the governor's conference on February 8th, 2020. He was trying to get ahead of it, but they shut down the world anyway, and they forced people to take, you know what, the cure for the sickness that they released. They paid pastors to go along with it and to have all these little shuttles and tents on their lands at the churches to force people to take the you know what when people came down with the sickness. They paid pastors, they paid doctors, they paid research institutions, they paid hospitals and nurses. They paid nurses a whole lot of money to be traveling nurses to help with the injections. They paid doctors to put certain, what do you call those things? I got to be careful about the word. Life supports on people that came down with the sickness, and paid them thousands of dollars for each person that they forced to have the inhalator vey on them. Trump tried to get ahead of that. So when they were trying to force us to take the you know what, Trump was saying take a saline solution, take ivermectin, I got to be careful, take light therapy, and then the mainstream media said, oh man, he's trying to tell people to take bleach. And here we are, people that were easily manipulated through the mainstream media said, oh my God, he's telling us to take bleach, something's wrong with him. Well, light therapy is a real treatment. So then Trump was put in a position. What do I say? Everybody's saying you got to take this cure to be healed, but it was making people sicker. Then they were like, you got to take a Ooster Bay 1, Ooster Bay 2. I'm speaking pig language. Ooster Bay, all these Ooster Bays every year, but people kept getting sick. So Trump said, and every month even. So Trump said, you know what? Let me get ahead of this. Let me tell people, yes, take the Ooster Bay, but I'm going to put a lot of, what's it called? Saline solutions in the Ooster Bays and create, I forget what it's called, where people are taking treatment and because they think it's helping them, it helps them. Placebos. Saline solution and placebos. I must flood the market with that and tell people, yeah, take the Ooster Bay, because people were saying take the Ooster Bay. He actually prevented more deaths by telling people to take it, but he was putting saline solution in it and putting real treatments in it. Since the masses were saying take it, since people was going to the churches and taking it, since people was going to the clinics, I mean, it got so bad that not only were the clinics giving it and the hospitals, but hell, you can go to a pharmacy and take it. Are these people even medically able to just get? I mean, like every day people was giving the Ooster Bays at CVS, at other Rite Aid and other pharmaceutical places. On a church parking lot, in the schools, they were recommending it. It got really bad. So what you're going to see now is doctors, they're already happening. They're facing lawsuits. Hospitals are facing lawsuits. If I were you and I was a nurse and I participated, I would protect myself, because they're coming after nurses as well. I get it that most nurses, doctors, and people that were in charge of certain healthcare agencies were doing what they were trained to do and taught to do. But now they're coming after them with lawsuits. So here we are in Trump's third administration, because he was actually still serving under the Biden administration. That's a war tactic, by the way, to let somebody, since the people are going to go along with whatever's happening anyway, you might as well just lay in a cut, lay low, and still be operating under military operation, and let the deep state run roughshod. Let Biden rule, and let the people see for themselves how wicked the deep state is. All the ones that voted for Biden, all the ones that voted for Kamala Harris, which were the same people that locked up people in mass, particularly so-called black men or men classified as black. But if those same people want to vote for him, hey, let them go. Let them do it. So Trump was still under the radar, working as the president, because we're under military operation. And that's why you'll see in certain media platforms, President Trump 45 through 47. And in the movie Melania, I don't want to give it away, but at one point the camera focused in on a license plate that said Trump 45 through 47, because he's been the president of the United States corporation the whole time, but he had to fall back and work behind the scenes as we are under military control. So this is what can lawfully happen according to our Constitution. Whenever you have a rogue element coming in and usurping the republic, or usurping our lawful right to live on our land, and usurping our freedoms, you can form a military, and not only form a military, but your military, which actually took an oath to protect the people, can then take over, and you'll be under military law. And that's what happened. The military actually tapped onto the shoulders of whoever is playing the character of Donald Trump, and asked him to lead as the commander-in-chief, or the commander-in-charge of the military while we're under military operation, and make massive arrests. And all of this is working together for our good. Not only is the military making massive arrests And you see all of these financial systems collapsing in the stock market, in the banking industry, and in the cryptocurrency industry. But you also saw the Supreme Court of the United States working in tandem with all of the people that are now benevolent people in charge. For example, I say this all the time, when the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine in the summer of 2024, that was something that was happening to let us know that the Republic was now operating, because the Supreme Court of the United States, by virtue of overturning the Chevron doctrine, stated that the United States Incorporated and all 444 agencies were unlawful, unconstitutional, and treasonous. Therefore, they all had to be dismantled. This is why the Department of Government Efficiency was created. That's why 300,000 people were eliminated from their jobs immediately. And then more hundreds of thousands of people from the government, because the government has to dissipate. We don't need the United States Incorporated. We don't need the FBI, the CIA, the EPA, the Housing Authority, the fishing industry, all of the 444. You can look on my community section of my YouTube channel, and I'll show you, and I'll put that back up so you can see it. We don't need that to govern us. We're sovereign. We know how to operate. We have tribal laws. We have family laws, and we have a republic. So the Supreme Court of the United States said the Chevron doctrine gave the government unlimited powers. And anytime you try to take any one of them to court, the judges or the administrators were working in tandem with the United States Incorporated, and they would say you have to do whatever any of those 444 agencies said, because they are the experts. So the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, saying that the government had too much authority and too much power. We need to downsize the government, and we need to eliminate their power, take away their power, and we need to make some arrests. Right after that, the Supreme Court of the United States determined that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve Central Banking System and have their own charter. They can completely disband from the Federal Reserve Central Banking System and have their own charter, issue out their own way of doing things, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. This is how we know the collapse of the old world, of the old system, is happening in real time. What's a state-sponsored banks? That means the states are taking care of the banks. That means each state now is operating independently. Each state, according to our republic, is its own country, its own nation, has its own rules, its own flag, and its own banks. And they can now issue out their own gold-backed currencies. At the same time, under Basel III compliances, all banks had to recognize gold as a Tier 1 asset, which means they had to recognize gold as money and not the fiat, not the USD, US dollar. And all banks had to have in their reserves foreign currencies. That's all a part of Basel III compliancy. All banks had to recognize gold as a Tier 1 asset, and they had to have it in their coffers as well as Tier 2 assets. These are banking terms. Tier 2 assets or foreign reserves is foreign currencies. And in the articles that I read and I reported on, the reason why this has to happen is because the banks would collapse and all be transferred or transitioned into wealth management centers. And they must have enough reserves to protect them from bankruptcies and to protect them and make sure they had enough in their coffers to take care of we the people initially. But in the long term, in the long run, these wealth management centers will actually teach us how to manage our wealth, because we're all going to be wealthy. We're all going to have access to our birth certificate bonds that were put in a trust, accumulating interest over time, put in a trust. You all also have something called a TDA account. Social Security, all that you're going to have access to. Excuse me. So we're all going to be wealthy. And if you have positioned yourself to have even more wealth by accumulating gold and silver, copper, and foreign currencies and other assets like land. If you position yourself, if you were able to, then that's additional wealth that you'll get. The first wealth in terms of having access to your birth certificate bonds, as well as trillions of dollars being injected into the global economy by way of us having a sovereign wealth fund here in America. All countries have sovereign wealth funds now. All that wealth will come to we the people. So you got access to your birth certificate bond, access to your Social Security trust, access to your TDA accounts. All of us do. As well as the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which was created by President Donald Trump. What is a Sovereign Wealth Fund? That is a trust that is comprised of stocks, bonds, real estate, rare earth minerals, money from taxes and tariffs of doing business with other countries, as well as money that was gifted from these other oil-rich countries and other countries that gifted the American people with funds for President Trump securing and brokering deals between these other nations. So all of that money, all of those assets, as well as the rare earth minerals that we have here on this land, all of that has been comprised in one trust, or several trusts, I should say, that are called, culminating under one umbrella called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. President Trump did that immediately when he came back into office in January. He created a Sovereign Wealth Fund. You can look at my video in January where I talk about Trump creates a Sovereign Wealth Fund, or you can just Google it. All that money, according to President Trump, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is something that he had to do to help Americans, because other countries have been doing this. They look at Qatar and other oil-rich nations. They have sovereign wealth funds. Other nations, they pay for health care. They pay for dental care for their people, and they give everybody an income every month to live on, especially oil-rich nations. That's what we're going to have. That's what we're calling NASARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. You have the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and President Trump said the Sovereign Wealth Fund would be to help the American people. It would be used to build up our infrastructure and to invest for investments. So that's one thing, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, again, comprised of stocks, bonds, real estate, rare earth minerals, wealth from the tariffs and taxes, and other assets to help the American people, to give everybody some type of income every month, use for infrastructure, and use to make investments. So you have that. You have access to your accounts that we will all have. You also have the letter that everybody's going to get that Chief Rod Hayes taught us about, that will tie us to our ancestry, where they'll let you know where you came from and all the wealth that's attached to their birth certificates, their death certificates, their marriage certificates. All of that money is all of that's put in trust for you. You're going to have access to that. And any additional wealth that you've accumulated for you and your posterity or your future generations by having gold and silver and copper and other precious metals or whatever, rare earth minerals, whatever you've invested in, and foreign currencies. All that, family, we will have. That will ensure our wealth. Somebody saying buy metals. Yes, because metals have taken a dive. Let me look and see. The last time I looked this afternoon, about 1:30, and y'all can fact check me though, gold was $4,930.71, and silver was $85.54 an ounce. So that's a dive, because gold had been $5,500 over that, and now it's $4,900. Silver had breached $119 per ounce. It might have gone all over until 120, but the last time I had looked a couple weeks ago, it was $119 an ounce. Now it's $85.51. So What will I suggest? Buy the dip. That's what economist Dex Lattimore told us. The economist of the Dr. Kia Pruitt show and the Silver Soul Tribe said, buy the dip and hold. Unless you have to sell in order to, eat or pay off something. And if you have extra, do what somebody said in the a TDA account. Yes, look up TDA. I found out a way where you can actually, what is it called? Look up TDA. I used to know the name of it. We have found a way in 2017 for people to access their TDA accounts, but people who figured out how to gain access to it ran into problems with the government because too many people were learning the secrets. What is TDA? Treasury Direct account, something like that. Treasury Direct account. Yeah, thank you. It's a Treasury Direct account. I don't know if it's attached to your birth certificate, but there's an account that you have, and it tells you when it matured, what year it matured, and how much it's worth. But it will look like it's just a couple tens of thousands, but that's because they're not basing it on a gold back system, which would be even more money. Absolutely, we're slowly coming out of the barbarian system. I agree. So there were some people that figured out how to get to that Treasury Direct account. There were some people who when they realized, they were like, okay, it's just showing as $30,000. But when you dig deeper, some people are like, it's hundreds of thousands, and some people are like in the millions that you will have access to at some point. So my encouragement to you today, family, is that the old system, as somebody said, the Babylonian system is collapsing. In church, we used to sing, you have a leader would say, "Oh, Babylon," and the congregation would say, "Babylon is falling," and then the leader would say, "Babylon," and the congregation, "Babylon is falling," and then you get real funky when you start clapping, tapping your feet. "Babylon, Babylon is falling. Babylon, Babylon is falling. Babylon, Babylon is falling. Babylon, Babylon is falling." If you know anything about the black church, the Pentecostal church, it would just go into a crescendo, would start getting faster and faster and faster. The tambourine would beat faster and faster. The drums would beat harder and harder. The organ and the piano would go higher and higher and higher until you get into a frenzy. Be like, "Babylon is falling! Babylon is falling!" People start twirling and dancing. Babylon is falling! You start crying and singing and waving. Babylon is falling! You might even start passing out. You get so excited. We're in that time. The old Babylonian system is gone. And this is what I do love certain things about the church, because the church would teach you how to use our ancient ways of actually destroying systems by dancing, by chanting, by disturbing the atmosphere. If you're all on one accord saying Babylon has fallen, and you're all singing and you're all moving around and you're all decreeing it is over, and at the same time refusing to participate in the system, it will collapse. Why do you think rents are going down now? Because the people are saying, I'm not paying that high rent, whether I can't afford it or I won't afford it. We're forcing landlords to say, oh, this place that used to cost $2,000 now has to cost $1,500. People are still holding. Now it's going to be $1,400, $1,300, $1,100. They will keep going down the longer we hold out and reject them, while at the same time calling on God, source, creator, the ancestors. I don't care if you call on Jesus, whatever your faith is tied to, and you call on your ancestor and you say to yourself or your higher self, or you just say it out in the atmosphere, it's over, it's done. Babylon has fallen. It will collapse. Do you know how many years I've been saying the old system has collapsed? It's been nearly a decade. And people would say, it hasn't collapsed. Why am I still paying debt? It hasn't collapsed. It ain't going nowhere. We still going to have the new world order. And I would say it's going to still happen for you, because that is the system and the reality that you're creating for yourself. But I kept saying, it's over. We're on a go back system. Babylon has fallen. The world has changed. The monetary system has changed. We're free. Do you know how many videos I said we're free, we're liberated, we're on a go back system? And I had people in even the financial industry to say, no, it's not collapsed. No, no, no. Gold is a relic. No, no, no. No, we don't need to all get gold. Do you know how many people said President Trump isn't working for us? Nothing is right happening for us. The military is going to all kill, unalive us. But when you hold firm and you stand 10 toes down and you proclaim your truth, it will happen. Because whatever you think about and focus on is what manifests. You create the reality that you desire. Let's shift. I was talking to my daughter and we were talking about relationships. And I said, if you tell yourself that your person is not a good person or that they're cheated, then they have cheated. Even if they never have, because that's what you told yourself. So you're going to keep thinking, we're just talking about, relationships in general. You keep thinking about it. That's what you're going to find. That's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to make a reality, whether they're doing it or not. But if you say, I have the perfect partner, we have a great relationship, we're good, that's what you're going to have. That's what you're going to manifest. If you say we have a good life, if you say I'm wealthy, if you say I'm free, I'm liberated, I'm sovereign, I'm amazing, I'm brilliant, I'm smart, I have my own bank, I have wealth managers, I am the wealth manager, I have family offices. If you say that, that's what manifests. I have a wealthy mentality. I have a good partner or companion. I'm in covenant with an amazing person. And you start looking at all the amazing things about your person and you let your person know, I'm so grateful for all you do. Even if they are doing wrong or have done wrong, they will change immediately when you start saying, I recognize the good that you've done. I'm so grateful that you did such and such. I recognize that you got up and went to work today. I recognize that you made me a beautiful meal. I appreciate these biscuits that you cooked. I appreciate the way you took our sons and daughter out and you spent time. I appreciate the dinner. That was amazing, mind-blowing sex that we had. I appreciate you learning different things. Do you know that will change a person? Even if they are not doing what's right. Because you're speaking in gratitude, as the Adept Moore Coach Bay taught us in my video called The Relationship Between Fitness and Finance. When you speak in gratitude and you behave in gratitude, and you operate in discipline and integrity, you will change the whole environment all around you. And I will add to that, using traditional ways, as we did in ancient ways and in the church, dancing, singing, chanting, all being on one accord, because in the mouth of 2 or 3 people, the ancestors are in the midst. In the mouth of 2 or 3 people, Source, Christ, Jesus, Christos, whoever you want to call on, is in the midst. And the older people in certain communities used to say abracadabra. And they told us, don't say abracadabra, you're working spells. Well, that's what words are, spelling. Would you rather or prefer I cast a spell of evil and wickedness by saying you're doomed? Would you rather I say the New World Order will continue? They will continue to enslave you. Would you rather I say central bank digital currencies are going to rule? Would you rather I say Trump is evil? Would you prefer that I say that the so-called elites are going to keep us enslaved? Would you rather I say the United States dollar is going to continue? Would you prefer that I say the system is going to enslave us? Would you prefer that I say that when you get that letter that says that your ancestors are tied to this trust, that they're going to try to usher you into some government place to unalive you? Is that what you prefer I say? Or would you prefer that I sell hopium, as people accuse me of, and saying that everything is changing for our good? Everything is working out for our benefit. We are sovereign. We have gold. Gold would destroy the Fed. We have silver. You are wealthy. You can create wealth for yourself. Abracadabra simply means I manifest as I speak. That's it. That's it. I manifest as I speak. Whatever you speak, what happens. I remember in 1998, I had just graduated with my master's degree, a master's degree in counseling and advanced studies in leadership. And I told my pastor at the time, I was like, I'm tired of working. I said, at some point, I'm just going to stop working and I'm going to be debt free. And he said, but you got a lot of debt, from college, and you got a lot of debt from such and such. He was like, I don't think it's realistic to say you're going to be completely free and never work. I don't think it's realistic to say you're going to be debt free. I said, where there's a will, there's a way. And I found a way to offset and to take care of, get rid of lawfully $200,000 worth of student loan debt, because I spoke it with my mouth that it's going to be done. I found a way to create my own business that makes, what is 5 times the amount of what I made working at a job at the time? Almost 6 times the amount. I found a way to create that because I said I'm going to be debt free and I'm going to not work for anybody and I'm going to be able to take care of my children. I said that in 1998. Now, I understand why the pastor was saying be realistic, because it just didn't make sense. But as I spoke it, I knew that my words would go into the multiverse and it would manifest, because the moment you make up your mind, the universe conspires to assist you. That is how powerful we are. Why do they teach us spelling? Because words cast spells. So when I say we are free, when I say we are wealthy, I'm casting a spell. I'm getting the world to buy into the words that I spoke. And because I spoke, sometimes people would say, there ain't no banking collapse. I didn't see it. Ain't no failing of the USD. I don't see it. And I say, just because you don't see it don't mean it's not happening. People will say, I believe it when I see it. I said, or you can say, I'll see it when I believe it. Or I see it when I know it. I don't even have to believe. I know. Whether it was happening or not in somebody else's reality, whether my eyes saw it or not, it was real for me that I was wealthy. It was real for me. And it has been that I am the family office for my whole family, my whole bloodline. As Chief Max says, you are the one that's breaking generational curses. You are the one, whether you can say God chose you or you chose yourself. No, remember the scripture that says, no man comes unto me except the Father sends him, or something like that. No man comes unto me except the Father, unless the Father chooses him. The metaphysical translation is no manifestation come unto me except the Father draws him. No manifestation comes unto me except the Father. Who is the Father? My highest self. The scripture also says, I and the Father are one. So if you look at that word man and manifest, you can literally say no manifestation comes unto me unless my highest thoughts, the Father, attracts it unto me. How do you attract wealth unto you, liberty, sovereignty unto you? You speak it, you know it, you live like it's happening. The law of attraction did a great job of trying to bring us into this whole golden era. In fact, they did. They brought a lot of people into the golden era. Abraham Hicks, y'all know Abraham and his wife. I don't even know if those are real characters. And the law of attraction. There are other laws based on universal principles, based on universal law. That's it. Study the 24 or 48 universal laws, however many laws that govern the universe. No man can come unto me except the Father draws him. No manifestations come unto me unless the Father or my highest self speaks it. unless my highest self knows that I'm Christ. The second coming of Christ could be a literal person. So I don't want to disparage anyone that in your reality, the Christ is coming back. That's beautiful. I come from a church background. I love the church. I'm not going to speak against the church. I speak against certain things that the church has done and allowed, because a lot of the pastors are part of secret societies. But most people who are in church did the best they could. I'm speaking. I really believe most people just want to be, most people, this is my frame. I learned in early psychology 101. You can choose, this is what our psychology professor told us. You could choose to believe or espouse the value that all humans are inherently good, or you can choose to espouse the value that all people are inherently bad. Based on those two value systems, you can create your whole psychology theory, and that will inform the way you practice. So if you believe or choose to have a value that humans are inherently bad, then you can use these type of practices to help people, or you can create your own. But that will govern, we worked more when we were in psychology, that will govern your behavior now, because this is what you believe. This becomes real for you. That's the life you will probably live, because that's real for you. But if you choose to espouse the value system that people are inherently good, then you will operate from what we came to call an abundance mentality. If you read Stephen Covey's work, he expounds upon that, on having a scarcity mentality versus an abundance mentality. I chose to believe that people are inherently good, or to know that people are inherently good. I chose to have the value system that there's an abundance of wealth, there's an abundance of peace, an abundance of joy, an abundance of resources for everyone. But it's all up to you what you choose to espouse. I have an abundance mentality. So I'm just saying, go back to the church. Most people went to church because they just wanted to live a good life. And when you look at the Christ, the ascended master that we call Christ, or Jesus, or if you know there was no J, ISIS, right? IESUS, ISIS. The ascended master Jesus, or ISIS, really lived a value-rich life. Whether you believe it's a real person or not, that taught to feed the hungry. He or she, if it was ISIS, did not trust taxpayers, threw over the tables of the money exchangers, people collecting taxes in the church. It was totally against tax. The taxation system of the Romans. By the way, we were under the pseudo-Roman Empire here in America. That's why we say Babylon is fallen. The Christ or ISIS believed in fasting in order to discipline the flesh and to operate in the spiritual realm. Believed or knew about healing, and would tell you that you should come in the water is troubled. So basically, whenever the angels would come and stir up the water, Jesus would tell the people that were sick to get in the water. That was a life lesson that says whenever the opportunity is there, avail yourself of the opportunity to get healed. Avail yourself of the opportunity to become wealthy. Avail yourself. Position yourself. But it really depends on your mentality. Again, if you have a scarcity mindset, you will tell yourself, there's not enough wealth. I can't be wealthy. I don't have enough. I'll never be wealthy. The system will never be it for my good. The government will never help me. They'll give me a letter and tell me about my ancestry and then march me into some place and unalive me. That's what people said to me on my last chat with Chief Rod Hayes. I said, if the system wanted to unalive, why would they send you a letter and say, here's all the benefits to your ancestors, now come into this place and we're going to unalive you? They know where you are right now. They can unalive you right now and take your wealth. But you'll go to Walmart, and we know there are underground tunnels there. You'll go to the hospitals, and you know they're unaliving you there. You'll hand over your children into the school system, and you know they're being miseducated and all type of thing propagandized there. You send them over to the daycare centers to strangers. You'll let your children get injected with all kind of poison. You'll walk into somebody's job and make them millions of dollars and obey them and say yazza massa. You do whatever the government tells you to do to get welfare and food stamps and Section 8. But now that the Chief Rod Hayes has told us you're going to get a letter that says, we know who your ancestors are, here are your benefits, some people will say, oh no, they might unalive me. Mentality. Some of the things that the church taught me, most of the things were good things. The Christ was all about life. The Bible says, I will that you have life and that more abundantly. Even the Christ said, I'm going to take care of everybody but my own first. Now it was Paul that came along and said, no, teach to take care of the Gentiles. But who was Paul? Most people that really study him don't trust him. He really taught the antithesis or against the things that the Christ taught. I'm not saying that the whole Bible is benevolent. See, I was a licensed minister and an ordained evangelist. We were taught to eisegete and exegete the scripture, to look at the literal terminology and expound upon that and understand and overstand etymology of words, exegete and eisegete, to look at not only the etymology of the words, but also the context in which things were spoken, the historical context, the cultural context. So you have to do deep dives and also not just study the Bible, we had to study historical books in addition to the scripture. I had excellent training as an evangelist under the House of God and then Grace Temple, to exegete and eisegete, to use thesaurus, to use other books. I even use ancient texts to help me or to inform me. That's why I'm not going to speak against the church and say they all going to hell and your God is evil. I'm not going to do that. Other people will, and that's for them to do. I'm not going to do that. There are things about the church that I didn't necessarily like, but when you think about things and with the mind of gratitude, you say, at least I learned discipline. They taught me to be modest. They taught me to cover up. I had good training. They taught me, the Christ lived an exemplary lifestyle, if you ask me. I'm not going to speak against higher education. I don't like the propagandizing. But when you have an abundance mindset and you're disciplined, you know how to eat what they give you and take in what's good for you and spit out the bones. So some people will come to our platforms and learn from me because I do have college degrees. I do have higher education. I do have a PhD. And they'll learn from me, but then they'll say, oh, your degree doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Well, it means a lot to me. I paid $200,000 for it. Okay. As well as the presidential scholarships that I got. I have like 5 degrees. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm very proud of myself. I went through rigorous training, being vetted, have improved myself. I had to conduct my own research. I had to write a book that can be researched for people that are like, what kind of degree? I have a PhD in education and counseling psychology. I have a master's in leadership studies, a master's in counseling, a higher education or graduate studies in economics and business, and a bachelor's degree in social sciences, which is comprised of politics, economics, psychology, and sociology. I'm very proud of that. I had to conduct my own research, and my research was on how to retain Black men in college. But even before I focused on that narrow population of men classified as Black, I had to look at, in my introduction of my book, my research, you can look it up. You can look up Dr. Kia Pruitt dissertation, University of Louisville. The whole dissertation will come up. That's my research. I had to look at how to retain college students, period. Retain and graduate them from college. Why? Because I know that in order under the system in which we live, to succeed and make a certain amount of money, it was important at the time for people to get college degrees. That's a value system of mine. So if you follow me, I'm going to speak about those values that are important to me. You don't need a college degree to function. No, I think we should have vocational schools and certifications for those that desire that. But this is a part of my value system, is what I'm saying. So just like I'm not going to speak against the church, I'm not going to speak against you if you have a college degree. To me, I just don't want to do that. But if you look at my dissertation, you'll see that I looked at how to retain and graduate college students. And then I used that broad context in my my introduction. And then I focused in all the way down to students classified as Black. After I looked at all students classified as Black, and then males. Why? Because in order for a man to be a provider, he needs some type of skills. And since I was in higher education, that is the route that I chose to, to make my living or to focus on. I'm focusing on men getting college degrees, or the ones that chose to go to college, retaining them and helping to graduate them, because I want them to succeed and be providers for their families. So I asked the University of Louisville, why is it that we don't have any statistics on Black male college success? We have a whole Institute of Research and Development with no statistics on males classified as Black. We recruit them in high numbers because we get money for recruiting Black students. We get money for recruiting all students. We have open enrollment now. But we don't have any records on how many male students we've retained, male Black students, how many we've graduated. We have to change. So I talked to the president, the Institute of Research and Development, Institute of Research and Development at my university. I talked to the dean of bachelor's, the dean of undergraduate studies. I went to the Center for African American Students. I went from the top Center of African American Students to the Associate Vice Provost for Diversity and Equity and something or another. Then I went to the Dean of undergrad students. I went all the way up the chain, because the people at the low end, Black students, that man was so busy trying to get in my underpants instead of focusing on helping Black men succeed. And he was a man classified as Black himself, that he could not and would not focus on helping me to retain Black men in college. So I bypassed him and I went to the sister, the vice provost. She told me I need to stay in my little place as a graduate student. You need to focus on your little stuff, she said. You're just a little graduate student. But you keep in mind, these are all people that pledged, all people that were the Black part of the Black elite, Black secret societies, Greek fraternities. Okay. Now the dean of undergrad studies didn't look like me. He was a Caucasian male. He said, you brought up something good. I never thought about that. Why don't we have statistics on Black men? He said, I'm sorry, I never thought about that. Why would I expect him to think about it? He's supposed to be focusing on maybe all undergraduate students, but most people focus on their community. That makes sense. And he said, I don't know what to tell you what to do, but you're doing the right thing. The Institute for Research and Development don't have any statistics. He said, I can't believe that we're a research one institution. But you have my support. I just don't know what to do. So I went to the president. The president of the university, at the University of Louisville at the time, 2008, 2009, said, I'm sorry that we don't have statistics in the Institute of Research and Development on men classified as Black. I'm even ashamed to admit that. Are you sure? I said, sir, here are all the statistics for all other students. We have some on Black women, none on Black men. And I said, I'm going to write a research paper on how to retain and graduate Black men from college, because I have a passion and a drive to help them I'm in higher education, to help them succeed so they can provide for their families. He said, that's admirable. He wrote a letter, he stamped it. Caucasian president. He was an economist too. So he understood economics. He understood being able to be a provider. He said, I admire your courage. I admire what you're doing. This is like amazing. It's unprecedented. I'm going to put my stamp of approval. You go right back to the African American Student Office. You go right back to the Associate Vice Provost of Equity and Diversity. You go right back to the undergraduate Dean of Undergraduate Students. And you tell them that I looked over all of your ways of how you can improve Black men, how you can gather data on Black men, and how you can create programs to help them to be retained, because retention is different from graduation. Retention rates are the data that you accumulate based on how many students you're able to maintain in college in the first and second year. So by the time they're sophomores, if they're still there, they're probably going to graduate. So you get data from the freshman year, sophomore year. Those are the retention records. Graduation data states that they made it all the way through and they succeeded. They crossed that threshold in getting their degrees. I went back to the student for African American Studies. He was like, I can't believe you went to the president on me. You didn't have faith in me. I said, you were too busy trying to go out to lunch and find out what I was doing afterwards and trying to figure out a way to date me, even though you're married and I'm not interested. But thank you. Now, the president said that my thoughts on how Black males should be mentored is something good that we should do. So we should probably implement the African American Male Initiative in the Black Student Affairs Office. We should look at Student African American Brotherhood, SAB, which was created by Professor Bledsoe in Ohio, and how these programs, SAB, help to retain and graduate Black men. We probably should implement Collegiate 100 and work with them, and work with the Black Greek fraternities to see if they can have more men to actually do voluntary work, because voluntary work and mentorship is tied into helping them to be retained and graduate. So I need you to do this, and I need you to create an office where you have advisors that will help follow these students and implement academic support programs, which means they need to be looking at their grades every semester and bringing them in for coaching or counseling and helping them to succeed. We need tutoring programs, mentoring programs, all of this. And these students need to be followed from matriculation all the way through graduation, from recruitment, from time you recruit them all the way through matriculation, all the way through until they graduate. Okay, thank you. And here's the stamp of approval from the president. Then I went to the vice provost of diversity and equity, or wherever she was. She got so mad at me. She said, are you trying to take my job? What are you trying to do by going to the president on me? Who do you think you are? I'm going to meet with your supervisor over in the medical department. You shouldn't even be concerned about what goes over in here in the undergraduate school. Now, you have crossed the line, young lady, but your supervisor is my friend. She went from the undergrad office to the medical school where I worked. I was recruiting students to go into medical school and dentistry. I created programs, and I taught the verbal reasoning component, for those of you that know about medicine, for the MCAT, the medical college admissions exam, and the dental admissions exam. I taught these students the verbal reasoning component. And I created programs, the summer medical SMDEP dental education program. And I helped write the grants to get $1.6 million into the University of Louisville to help recruit and retain students into medicine, students of color and rural white students, because rural white students are also underrepresented in medicine. They don't trust doctors either, and they're underrepresented in the medical field. So I was recruiting them in the medical field, and I was creating summer programs, the SMDEP, MCAT preparation, DET preparation. I was hiring people from the physiology department, people from oh God, it escapes me. Anatomy, chemistry, organic chemistry, histology, all these people I brought together in summer programs to help prepare freshmen and sophomores for medical school. And then once they got into medical school, I did workshops to help them in professional development. And I helped them to study for their board exams. I helped them with their resumes to get into residencies. I was really focused on, and I got superior ratings. So I did all this in the medical school, but I was also concerned about the black men in undergrad school. I'm an undergrad college. So the vice provost for diversity and equity met with my boss, my supervisor in the medical campus, and called me in the office to, I guess they all a part of some little society. But luckily, my boss said, I don't have any control over what Kia does in her spare time. I cannot force her to stop working on the undergrad office. If that's, she says she's going to do her PhD research on that. Why would I try to stop her? She's got superior ratings. I can't, and they were talking. And so my boss said, do you want to say anything? I said, no, ma'am. What she said is true. I did go to the president. I went to her. She didn't help me. I went to all these people. They didn't help me. So I went to the president. What was I supposed to do? I'm passionate about this. She said, you're dismissed. And they kikied and cacaed and went out. And the associate vice provost, which is right underneath the president, and she, you know, they were friends. They hung out a couple of times, but she literally tried to get me fired. This tells us about how these secret society people operate. Thankfully, my supervisor had integrity. She couldn't fire me and she wouldn't. But they were so concerned about their job and their money that they didn't even want to graduate black men from college. Not even the black male who was over the African American student office. Not even the woman classified as black who was the associate vice provost, making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, wasn't concerned about black males. I'm sorry for yelling. With the president's blessing, I was able to change the office and African American students to incorporate African American Male Initiative, SOB, Student for African American Brotherhood, Collegiate 100, and get Black Greek fraternities, because I'm not a part of secret societies. But I'm like, if y'all gonna be here on campus and you got people in your groups, this is what I expect of you. And I was just getting into my PhD program. I hadn't even started yet, but I had the president's seal of approval. They changed that whole campus. The Institution of Research and Development, which gathers the data of all students, started gathering the students of males classified as black. They had the recruitment numbers because all colleges get money, government funds for recruiting black males, but they don't have to report in many instances, how many they retain, how many they graduate, two different things, how many survive up to their sophomore year, that's retention, and how many graduate, made it all the way through. No data. But thankfully, because of that president admired the work I was trying to do, I was able to change that. I am the only black female expert in the area of black male college retention and graduation. At least I was when I graduated. The only female expert in the area. What is an expert? Somebody that worked in the area, somebody that did the research and not only reported on the research that I did, but actually did my own methodology, implemented my own methodology where I crunched the numbers myself and I put out surveys and I interviewed males classified as black. And I discovered in my own research what helps retain and graduate black males. And here are the things that I found in my own research, based on my own studies, my own methodology that I implemented, my own surveys, my own crunching the data, my own interviews of black males. They need to have access to funds. Number one, participate in extracurricular activities, have family support, participate, have mentorship, and participate in Pan-African Studies. Now, somebody got on my post and said Pan-African Studies is a fraud, it's a sham, and I get it. They said that because my son, Dex Lattimore, who is the economist of my show, has a dual degree in economics and Pan-African Studies and a focus on international business. And I get it. But what we've discovered is whether you take Pan-African Studies as a man classified as Black, or Black Studies, or African Studies, or any studies that resembles who you are as a male of color, you are more likely to graduate. But you had to have every male that I looked at that graduated successfully, and I interviewed and I looked at the numbers and I put out surveys. What my data suggested is that if they participate in so-called Black studies, not because they needed to function and have a degree, but because they were surrounded by males who looked like them, and because those same men usually mentored them, which led me to mentorship. So they participated in African American studies. They had any type of mentorship. They had family support. They participated in extracurricular activities, including volunteering. And what's the last one? I forgot. Access to funds, mentorship, Black studies, Pan-African studies, gosh, there were 5 of them. Access to finances, because a lot of people don't have access to money to go to college. And it's the same for all students, by the way. Because remember, the first part of my research I had to look at all students. Access to funds, they participate in Pan-African studies, extracurricular activities, mentorship, and family support. Those are the 5 things that all students need. You can substitute Black studies for any type of studies that made them feel safe and secure. Those 5 things is what I found in my research. When you do your research, the whole time you're writing your research paper, you have to be examined by your committee. I chose to have my committee to be headed by a Caucasian male and a Caucasian woman. I chose that because I wanted somebody who wasn't going to side with me. I wanted somebody who could look at this from all different lenses. Because again, when I had a brother on my committee, the brother that I first initially chose, he was disrespectful to me. He was mean, he was rude. There were some overtures that just made me feel a little uncomfortable. So I chose a professor that was an esteemed, high-ranked professor in the whole district. He was at the top. He might have had some prejudices, but I think most people do. But I liked how he challenged me. And I chose a Caucasian woman who was just hard on everybody. She didn't care who you were. Before you even get to the point of doing your dissertation and research and defending it and presenting it to the whole crowd, your whole team, your whole committee, you have to take exams. After you go through your years of college, your years of education, your PhD program, you have to take comprehensive exams. That's where you go into the computer lab and sit for 3 or 4 hours and answer questions with no books, no research, no notes, no nothing. You have one question from your master's degree program. You're supposed to remember whatever you study. And because I got a master's in counseling, you know what my question was? Create a counseling department. What's your budget? How many people are you going to hire? What's their background? What is the criteria? What must they do? I can't think of what is their not only their qualifications, but write out their job description for your whole counseling program. I had to create a counseling department for the University of Louisville based on you have to cite sources. You have to give theory. I had to do student development theory, budgeting, ethics, all this. That was my one question for hours typing. And you had to document sources. So I had to say, this person from 1981 said that students have 5 areas of development that we must focus on: psychological, sociological, spiritual, physical, and theological. Let's just say that. Just and this is what they said, and this is the book, and this is the source, and I cross-referenced that with that for hours. One question, and create your own psychology department. Then you have to do a question. I had to do a question on research and development. I had to do something else on, I can't even remember all the different areas, for hours, just typing or writing with no books, no notes, no nothing, including the sources and all the books you used. I did that, and I passed with honors. So then the next phase is doing research, studying, reporting on what you study, and then creating your own methodology and doing getting the data from that. So I had at my head, the esteemed professor said to me, "You said that the reason why Black males are not graduating at high rates from publicly white institutions or PWIs because of this, that, and the other, then why are Black men failing at HBCUs, historically Black colleges? If it was," so he said, "so maybe it's not the institution, maybe it's the males." And I got offended. But he's my superior, right? He's the one that's going to determine if I get to graduate with my PhD. I held back the tears. I swallowed my pride. I said, "Yes, sir, some of Black males are failing from HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, as well as they're failing in private white institutions." He said, "You need to find out why. How do I know it's not the Black males? Maybe they're not. Is it something within them that's not helping them to graduate?" And I said, "Well, this is the guy I chose to lead my committee." And the woman that was beside him said, "He brought up a good point." And I did have a brother that was on my committee. He was looking a little uncomfortable, like, "How dare you say that to her," right? But I did choose another brother and some other people. I had 5 people. Most people have 4 on the committee. I chose 5. I wanted to be pressured. I wanted to be under pressure. I went back and I did the research, and I discovered that the reason why a lot of males classified as Black were not graduating. Now, people think just because you go to a HBCU, you're going to graduate. But a lot of Black males weren't graduating, is because they had the same issues at a lot of the HBCUs that they have at the PWIs. The same issues. A lot of teachers that didn't look like them are at HBCUs. They were being like, you have a lot of foreigners teaching at historically Black universities and colleges. You have a lot of non-Black males and women there teaching. And that shouldn't matter, but it does, because you also thinking about mentorship. Who's going to mentor you? So they also have the same ideologies. They also had a lot of the same programs. They also didn't gather the same type of data. They based HBCUs and PWIs on the same criteria. And they all were part of secret societies, which I didn't bring that up. I was very strategic about how I said that. They all had the same kind of ideology, the same thing that was going on at both institutions. Please don't let anybody make you think that's not happening. At HBCUs, you had Black secret societies that were stealing the money, just like at PWIs, publicly white institutions. You had some of them raping the males at HBCUs, just like you had at PWI sleeping with the young women. You have a lot of the same thing was going across the board. A lot of the same programs that we needed to have in place that wasn't in place at PWIs. What is it? Publicly white institution, predominantly white institutions. Thank you so much for the donation. God bless you, Dory. It was the same happening at HBCU. So being challenged to that high degree was good for me, because once I passed and I got my credentials, I was able to use everything that I learned from my undergrad all the way up to my doctoral program, because my doctoral program taught me how to be under pressure. It taught me how to research. It taught me how to report. It taught me how to triangulate and make sure I have at least 3 sources to support my claim. It taught me how to present facts to you all and how to put that in the description section so that if you wanted to challenge me and prove me right or prove me wrong, you can have the information that I use to inform what I said. It taught me everything. So I'm not going to speak against colleges. I'm not going to speak against churches or Buddhism or Hare Krishna or Hinduism, none of that, or the Nation of Islam, because I started off in the Nation of Islam. That taught me how to eat to live. That taught me how to cover up. That taught me how to be disciplined. That informed my mother how to have structure in her home, how to get married, how to teach us discipline, how to teach us to read. Say what you want about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He told the parents to teach your children to read before they go to school. We actually went to private Muslim schools where we were taught to read, taught multiplication before we were 5. Taught how to eat raw fruits and vegetables. If you eat meat, you incorporate that. Taught us a marriage culture, taught us that the women should be separate from the men and let the men do men things. Let them go out and work in the shed. Let them have their men time if they want to bond and whatever. And let the women be women and hang out with each other and teach each other secrets. My mother was making clothes at 19 for her children. I'm not going to talk against the Nation of Islam. I'm not going to talk against the church, because most people that go to the church literally want to do what's right. They want to live a life of Christ. So what brought me to that is that the second coming of Christ could be literal Christ coming in the clouds for his people, for those that's a value system for. That's their reality. It was my reality. But 2 things can be true at the same time. You can also look at that as the second coming of Christ be the second coming of Christos consciousness, where we're all having an awakening. Christo consciousness is a second coming or the dawning of a new age, where we're having an awakening that we are God. That's what the scripture says in Psalms and St. John. Meaning that we can create whatever reality that we want. So the trumpet is going to be sounded, and then Christ will come for his church. The dead in Christ will raise first, and then those that are alive and remain shall be caught up to meet him in the air. And while you're going in the air, you have the translation of the saints, where your body will be literally changed. Okay. I think that's beautiful. What we're experiencing now is the second coming of Christ, or Christos consciousness, where we used to be awakened, but we fell asleep for a time, not knowing that we have sovereignty and we have the ability to manifest and create for ourselves. Now we're having an awakening. We don't need to look outside of ourselves. We can look at the God within, knowing that we're God or source. We're all part of our ancestors. We're all part of one, the source or creator. That's the second coming of Christ, Christos consciousness. That's what Corona was about. They were saying we're coming into an age of the crown, where the crown chakra is being activated. Corona means crown, as in gold, as in golden era, as in the gold standard, as in the people are awakening. So we have to unalive them as much as we can. This is what the deep state was saying with the sickness, right? So this is a second coming of Christ. The trumpet will sound. Trump, or Donald Trump, will sound against the deep state. The trumpet will sound. Donald Trump, the character, the avatar, will sound against the deep state. The trumpet will sound. Christ will come back. People will wake up and realize that we've been enslaved. The dead in Christ will rise first. Those who were asleep will wake up first. Those that are alive and we remain will also ascend in consciousness, or ascend and be caught up to meet him in the air. We're all ascending consciousness, right? And then Their bodies will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. We're now talking about how our bodies are literally changing into a crystalline body. From carnality and from this flesh to crystallization. We're talking about that now. That is another way to look at the scripture. That's why I'm not going to speak against it. Our bodies are being changed in a moment of the twinkling of an eye. We know that we're needing less foods. We're requiring whole foods with heirloom seeds. We're rejecting poison and sickness. We're requiring less sleep. We're fasting more. We're abstaining. Now you hear people talk about intermittent fasting. The Bible talked about going hours or days without food. So why? So your carnal mind and body can decrease and your spiritual man can increase. Now people are saying we're doing intermittent fasting. It makes you feel better. You sleep better. You have more psychic abilities. You dream better. Same thing. You have visions. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. The more I listen to you, Dr. Kia, I am more encouraged. Peace to you. And I'm totally loving you from Cleveland because I am as well. Thank you, P.R. Crite. Thank you for the blessing, for the donation, the $10 donation. God bless you. Create a smile on you for your donation and for all your donations. Also, that was Dory Washington gave me a $20 donation. Thank you all so much. And thank you for all the hearts. Thank you all for the love and support, family. We're now talking about fasting and how good it makes you feel. It makes you lose weight. Christ talked about that. So that your carnal man can decrease and your spiritual man can increase. So that now instead of focusing on eating foods and self-medicating through foods, drugs, alcohol, weed, now we're more focused on having our light bodies being crystalline, being awakened, having mental clarity. What do you think that all means? Spirituality, ascending in consciousness. So now that the trumpet has sounded, Christ really did come back. It's crystal consciousness, or Isis, Jesus, Christ. And people woke up. The dead in Christ did rise. They rose in consciousness. All the people that thought you and I were crazy woke up, right? When did that start? Mainly through Corona. 2020. Corona beating crown. Crown chakra. Christos consciousness. That was the second coming, in my humble opinion, my strong opinion. So I'm just saying that we are in the golden era in a whole new reality. Everything that was meant to destroy us will be turned around for our good. There's a scripture that says all things work together for those who love the Lord and for those who are called according to his purpose. You could say all things work together for the good for those who love goodness, righteousness, source, creator, ancestors. You can say whatever, your highest self. All things work together for the good for those who love the Lord and for those who are called according to his purpose. Those who are called to fulfill their mission or source's mission or the highest self's mission. All things work together for the good for those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. If you were called, if you were chosen, and you made your calling or election sure, the scripture says make your calling and election sure means to verify that you've been called by walking in your calling and operating like you were called or that you have a purpose. Another scripture says, no weapon that is formed against us shall prosper. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And every word spoken against me in judgment, I will condemn. No weapon formed against you will prosper. No government formed against you. No policy enforcer. No fake laws. No legality, statutes, and codes that were formed against you. No magic. No rituals that they formed against you shall prosper. And every word spoken against you in judgment, you will condemn. You can condemn every word, every thought that was formed against you by speaking the word. Your judgment can be right now in this moment. If you sent something to me, return the sender. Or you can choose to have grace and say, have grace. We used to say, Lord, have mercy. Your grandma said, Lord, have mercy. We can choose to extend grace and opportunity for people to get it right. We can choose to extend mercy, or we can say, you know what? Return the sender, because that's not cursing you. That's just putting up a boomerang, putting up something so that whatever you send to me will go right back to you. Having said that, we're in a whole new reality where everything you determine, you speak, you think, you feel, even, because feeling is a vibration, will manifest. So be mindful of what's in your subconscious mind. Because 90% of human behavior, some psychologists, why I won't speak against psychology, because you just studying behavior, human behavior. You study not only human behavior, but you're studying how people think, their cognition, and their behavior. 90 to 95% of human behavior is driven by and motivated by what's in their subconscious mind. That's why you have to be very conscious of podcasters that you listen to, because if it's negative, it's going to go into your subconscious and in your mind, and you will find yourself manifesting what they say and creating reality based on that. You got to be mindful of podcasters you listen to, music you listen to, books you read, things you see in the media, energies that are around you, even the foods you eat. That's why you should not go to sleep with the television on, because you don't know about the vibrations they're sending through the television or the music. I don't want to say you shouldn't, just be mindful, because it's going in deep into your consciousness. And that is what drives human behavior. And a lot of us don't even know that. 90% and even more recent psychologists say 95% of human behavior is driven by or motivated by what's in our subconscious mind. Even the dreams you have can come from what's the programming, in other words. So eat high vibrational foods, be around positivity, walk in the nature, walk on grass, because we come from the earth. Let your feet touch the soil. That's why they got us walking in shoes. That's why they put concrete over the grass, so we can't feel the vibration from Mother Earth that wants to feed us, because Mother Earth loves us. We come from her. They put concrete there to not only absorb the sun and make it harder, which is weird, but they don't want you to touch the ground. Walk along the water. People will say the water has dragons in it, mermaids, beings, ancient civilizations, energies. The scripture says God moved upon the face of the deep. See, I can't speak against the water. God moved upon the face of the deep. Can't speak against the Bible or the water. Other religions and value systems say Mami Wata is important. 90% of your body is comprised of water. Yemaya or Yemoja, whoever you call her based on your culture, lives in the water. The water gods. I went to visit a priest in Ghana, a priestess, who said, I'm going to speak to the water gods. And I was just, it's like, okay. She spoke to the water gods, or who she perceived, at the water gods to be. And that woman read me and told me what was going on in my life, because at the time my husband was very ill, told me what I need to give him, told me what herbs to give me based on speaking to the water gods. We gave him those herbs, and we did, and he got instantly better. At the time, he lived many years after that, before he transitioned, but spoke to the water, because some people speak to the water gods. Now, I know the Bible says there's only one true and living God, but it does mention other gods, right? It does mention Ishtar. It does mention Baal. and Molech, and it says stay away from Baal and Molech worship, which is what these so-called elites were doing. They were sacrificing children tray to Molech and Baal, because this is how long they've been practicing those behaviors to those gods. They might be false gods to you and me, but they're real gods to somebody else. Okay, so whatever your value system is, I would encourage you to know that the moment you make up your mind, the universe inspires to consist you, because you are the co-creator of your life. Remember what the scripture I said before I even got on this segment? No man can come unto me except the Father draws him or attracts him. No manifestation come unto me unless my highest self draws it, because I and the Father are one. So my highest self desires my highest good. I desire wealth. I desire peace. I desire prosperity. I desire wholeness. I desire a good life for everybody on the planet. I desire clean water. I desire Mother Earth to be cleansed. I desire unity. And that's what we're creating. The trumpet has already sounded. The second coming of our Christos consciousness, or Christ, has happened. Those are alive, though the dead in Christ, those that didn't believe, or they just were so-called dead, they rose in consciousness. And those that are alive and remain, we were caught up. We ascended in Christ to meet him in the air, to meet all the others in the air. And our bodies are literally changing as we speak. And having said that, family, I am so grateful for you that you even choose to listen to what I have to say, because life is all about choice. Your reality, look, you can look at it like things are changing, or you can look at it like things are never changed, but it's based on your perception. Remember, everything is perception. Whenever something happens in your life, tell yourself it's all about perception. How do I choose to see this? How do I choose to move forward from this? And how can I make things happen the way I desire for them to happen? So if we say get wealth, and you've done the budget and you know how much you can afford, you might say, I can only afford certain much, or it's not in my budget, or whatever. But then you ask yourself, how can I afford it? Let me tell you how to afford it. We're saying get gold. Gold is $4,900. You say, who can afford that? It's not in my budget. You don't have to get an ounce of gold. You can get a half an ounce. You can get grams. You can get gold aurum notes or gold backs, which are about $10. A gold back is 24 karat gold pressed onto a note, and it has already passed legislation in 46 states as of today, maybe even more, because I haven't looked at the research this year. The gold backs have already passed as legal tender, meaning you can buy local goods and services right now today with a gold back. Can you afford $10? That's how you can get gold. 24 karat gold pressed onto a note called gold aurum notes or gold backs. You can go to goldbacks.com or goldbacks.org. You can go to AppMex. You can go to JD Bullion, SM Bullion, Money Metals, maybe even Great American Coin Company, or you can go to your local coin dealer. Or you can say, well, maybe. No, I don't know if I really want that. That might be a little much. Thank you so much, Sister Janine. She said, we're good. You're good. And what she say? And we are so grateful for you, Doc. You are amazing. Thank you, sister. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Precious metals are indeed precious. Yes, they are. Somebody who says, hit those like buttons. Thank you. Ye are gods. I love that. Thank you. Hit the like button, family. You might say, gold will destroy the Fed, but silver will destroy the banks. Gold is the money of kings and queens, but silver is the money for ladies and gentlemen. Or if gold is out of my budget, silver is still classified as money. Both gold and silver are classified as money according to the Constitution for the United States. Silver right now is 80 something dollars an ounce. Did I say 84? 85.54. If you can afford it, if it's in your budget, get silver. But you might say, I liked it better when silver was $11 an ounce. When I got it, started getting it was $14 an ounce. 85. Whew, you made a good return on your investment if you bought it before it went this high. But you know what you can get? You can get half an ounce. You can get grams. You can get quarter ounce. You can get lower denominations. You can get constitutional coins. You can get a John F. Kennedy $50 or $50. You can get a roll of dimes that were classified as constitutional silver. So when you go to your local coin dealer or you call a precious metals company, you can ask, do you have constitutional silver? Constitutional silver is not silver bullion. Silver bullion is going for $85 per ounce. Or you could get half an ounce, or of course grams, or silver ingots, the silver bullet, silver knives. Okay, but let me stop. So you can say, I need to know if you have constitutional silver, coins that were minted before 1965. Those silver coins called constitutional silver is also called junk silver. It has 90% silver in it. You can also, so that's going most likely going to be less than the silver bullion, or you can look for those coins that have even less than 90% silver. Some of them have 60% silver or 40% silver, like the silver dimes that I found on AppMex that went like that, but it's still silver. You can go to antique shops, pawn shops, estate sales, your local coin dealer. Get silverware, silver bullets, sterling silver, silver jewelry, gold jewelry. It's going to be 24 karat, 14 karat, 10 karat, whatever, is still silver. Sterling silver has 92% silver. Constitutional silver coins minted before 1965 have 90% silver. Sterling silver has 92% silver. There's a way. You might say, okay, I'm going to go to an antique shop. I'm going to an estate sale. They have estate sales. That's where people are selling off when they're moving from their home, or maybe somebody passed away. They're going to sell everything in a home. A lot of time, especially in wealthy neighborhoods, or certain, I don't even have to be wealthy neighborhoods. You might have neighborhoods where there was a collector that lived there that has all these coins that they usually just sell right back to your local coin dealer, because maybe the children or the benefactors don't want it, or they didn't know that there was going to have any monetary value on these jewelry, silver jewelry or coins. So you can get silver, a bullion silver for $85 an ounce, or you can get constitutional silver, which is 90% silver. Call it constitutional silver, junk silver. It has 90% silver. You can get sterling silver, that's 92% silver. You can get silverware, silver jewelry. You can hold on to all your cell phones. They have silver in it. Your refrigerator, your stove, your washing machine, your dryer, all your appliances, your microwave oven have silver in them. Solar panels. Your car, your catalytic converter has silver and palladium in it. So you wonder why these junkyards said, bring your car, just junk your car over here. Or these people say, oh, trade your car, bring in, whether drag it in, we don't care. They'll either revamp it or, freshen it up and sell it, resell it, or they just strip it from the silver and palladium and make themselves rich. Throw away your cell phones. It has cobalt in it and silver. Oh, just get rid of your appliances. They have silver in it. All that's valuable. Imagine what's going to happen. Now, I want you to think about this. Recently, the United States determined that silver and copper needed to be added to. In fact, they added silver and copper to their critical minerals list. That should tell you something. Why is it their critical minerals list? Because they need it. President Trump said that silver is a strategic metal. They use it in nuclear weaponry. They use it to make silver bullets. Even if you buy silver bullets, it's still silver. You can pass that wealth on to your children or your children's children. You don't have to use it or sell it off. Try to make money. Andy Scheckman from Miles Franklin taught me that. Don't look at silver and gold as an investment. Look at it as wealth. You're accumulating wealth to pass down to your future generations. I was like, oh my God, I need to change my mindset. I need to do a paradigm shift. That's what I told him. I need to do a paradigm shift. Thank you. So don't get me wrong. When I made a good investment, a return on my investment, and I had an emergency come up, I'm glad I had that savings while I had fiat and I saw it would decline in value, and I put it in the silver when I had an emergency. I did choose to sell some of it to handle that emergency, but the remaining is going to go to my grandchildren. So, an abundance mindset. Silver and copper were added to the critical minerals list. This is information we spoke about in my private group last year before people got on the copper craze. We were already ahead of the curve. If you're interested in joining my private group, just hit the join button, follow the prompts, and be a part of the private group, because the Soul Tribe, they do their research. We even found banking perks. Sister Sheila from the private group found the not banking perks. She found a banking protocol. What you need, and this is from a bank, what you need in order to exchange your currencies from a bank. She found that. Sister Janine, who is our moderator, she gives a lot of information in the Soul Tribe. Brother Jeffrey, he's the one that told us about copper 8 months ago and said get some. When it was $1, $2 an ounce. Now you can't even find it on some websites. But my point is, just because they're out of copper at these websites, these precious metals websites, doesn't mean you can't get it. What you do is you hit the alert me button. I got to get ready. I have to get ready to go. My son's calling me. Hit the alert me button and they'll email you when the copper comes in. So get copper. That's what I'm saying. Get foreign currencies. There's a way you can get agro checks at one time for $1. You can get Venezuelan bolivar, Iraqi dinar, Indonesian rupiah, Zimbabwe zim. Put it in the chat, family. Iraqi dinar. You can get lower denominations. You can go to your local coin dealer. I bought a zim for $1 a 4 years ago, because they were just like, oh, this is just a nice little collector's item. When you make up your mind, the universe conspires to assist you. When you ask yourself, how can I afford it? You will find a way. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Having said that, family, I love you with all my heart, mind, and soul. I am grateful for you all being here. I love you for all the information that you share in the chat. I love you for all the donations. Thank you so much. We've got $49.99 in donations. Thank you so much. I can read at the top of my YouTube channel. And for those of you that desire to or ask about my Cash App, is $ Mama Kia 13. That's MAMA KIA 13. MAMA KIA Mama Kia 13. Family, we've reached the dawning of a new age, the golden era. The banking system and the old financial system has collapsed. That's why they're dumping stocks. The banks are collapsing and the stock market is collapsing. Most of that happened in one day on last Friday, and we see a lot of it happening today, Wednesday. We need to document this, February the 4th, 2026. My name is Kia Pruitt, Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Go out and make this a great day, family. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you later. Go get some assets, whatever it is that you can afford. How much? What should you get? Whatever you understand and overstand through your research, and whatever you can afford, whatever's in your budget. There's a way. There's always a ram in the bush, meaning there's always a way to get what it is that you want. That statement came from Abraham being told by the God of the Bible to sacrifice his son. He didn't want to do that, but he was going to sacrifice his son to the God of his understanding. He went through the whole ritual of tying him up, putting him on the rock to get ready to sacrifice him. But the God of his understanding of the Bible says, because you were obedient, I'm not going to command you to do this. There's a ram over there in the bush. Get that ram from the bush and sacrifice that instead. So what am I saying? I'm saying there's always an opportunity when you're ready. Just avail yourself of those opportunities. Okay? Take care, family. Y'all taught me not to say goodbye. I'll talk to you all later. You are so, so welcome. You're so welcome. Love and light. Bye-bye. Y'all told me to I took lemon water with honey, and my son put like cayenne pepper and cinnamon. He put all this stuff in it last night, and my coughing went away right away. So I think I need to go do something now. I can see the mucus is coming up from the oregano and black seed oil that I've been taking as well. If you want to get some, go to Honlistic, HONLISTIC.shop and get you some. I'm feeling better, but like for 24 hours, I just was under. I don't know what happened, coughing uncontrollably or whatever, but I do feel better. I can feel something coming on. So I'm going to go off and go get me some more of the concoction that my son made. And somebody else, I'm going to read the chat because y'all been telling me what kind of shots to take in order to get rid of this. I think it's a virus. So that's it, family. Take care and create the reality that you desire and deserve. Peace.